Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's Ben Falcons Media Corner back again with a brand new video for today. Welcome back to another double move review ACAT vs Soul review video for today. For this new double ACAT vs Soul review video for today, this is going to be my review on two films that were released last year from Paramount. And both of these are streaming service films, which these two films were released on Amazon Prime in the UK, while for the US, one of them was a Amazon Prime exclusive film, and the other was a Paramount Plus exclusive film. And both of these are sci-fi films. So the first one I'm going to kick off with is The Tomorrow War. Now, The Tomorrow War was directed by Chris McKay, the man behind the Lego Batman movie. And the story of the film is that we follow a group of present-day soldiers and civilians where they're basically sent into the future, where mankind was in global danger from deadly alien species who are about to threaten mankind. So we follow Chris Pratt's character named Dan, where for himself and a group of the characters in the film, they're basically sent into the future to basically save mankind from these deadly alien species who are about to threaten mankind. And also we see these characters, basically trying to save the whole future itself. So that's pretty much the story of The Tomorrow War. Now, I absolutely knew nothing about this film going into it because I never saw any marketing or any trailers or anything like that for this movie. This movie kind of popped out of nowhere when I was looking on Amazon Prime to basically look for what I was going to watch and all that. And this one did kind of look pretty interesting because it has Chris Pratt in the film, and I'm a fan of Chris Pratt. I think he's a really fun actor, from the MCU as Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And you also may know him, of course, in the Jurassic World series, which he's pretty fun in those movies. And, of course, you may know him as the voice of Emma in the Lego movies, too, which he's really funny in those movies. And you also have some other talented names in the film, which you've got Sam Robertson, which he's appeared in a few things here and there, for, like, some comedy films, and you've got Oscar winner J.K. Simmons from Whiplash, and of course the Spider-Man trilogy, and amongst other things. And for the director Chris McKay, I didn't even know it was actually him who was directing this movie because I've never seen anything else he's done before other than just the Lego movie, which that was actually his very first film as director though. So for him directing a totally different new film, I was kind of intrigued to see what he was going to do for this movie and all that. So I did watch this on Amazon Prime last year, back in July, and after watching it, I had a pretty solid time with this one. I would say this is probably a pretty good, solid sci-fi movie here. And obviously, I don't see this one being, a next sci-fi classic or anything like that, but this still is a pretty good watch here. Like, there's a few things to enjoy out of this movie. Like, Chris Pratt's pretty good in the movie as the main character here, and I did like what he was given for his character development, because for his character, I kind of found that pretty interesting when we do a little bit about his backstory and all of that, which I kind of found that interesting for the most part. And for other actors in the film, like I said, you've got Sam Robertson. He was pretty entertaining in the film. And J.K. Simmons, who plays Dan's father, while he's not in the movie that much, he was pretty good in the movie. And he does kind of give like a gravelly style to his character, like the way he looks and his voice and all that, which I kind of found that pretty good. But again, he's not in the movie that much. And as for everyone else, I thought they were pretty solid for the acting performances here. And for its concept, I did find it pretty creative, where it does have some similarities to, like, say, post-apocalyptic alien films and all that, like, say, Alien, Edge of Tomorrow, Waterworld, and World War Z and all that. And when I was watching this movie mostly kind of reminds me of Edge of Tomorrow in a way, from its style and all that. But still, though, I did like its concept, though. I still like its whole concept here. But for its execution, though, it does have moments where where it does feel really predictable for, like, what's going to happen and all that, like, during the action moments with the characters and towards the end and all that. And speaking of the action scenes are pretty entertaining enough, where we see some gunplays and all that against the aliens and all that, those moments were pretty entertaining enough. And the aliens itself, like the way they look, they were pretty well developed and all that. And they almost kind of remind me of some of the other aliens I would have seen before in other movies and all that has like aliens and all that. But I did like what the filmmakers went for this movie, for the whole alien look here in this film. And again, the whole CG effects for them were pretty well developed, and they were not atrociously a mess or anything like that throughout this whole movie. And speaking of the action scenes, there's two climatic action scenes, which one of them, it did feel like the film was already ending and all that, but there was only like a few minutes left of this film, which I kind of found the runtime for this film a bit tad too long, because this film is only 2 hours and 18 minutes. I just kind of wish a few minutes would have been shaved off. I kind of wish a few minutes of this film could have been shaved off after all of that. But in the end, guys, The Tomorrow War, I had a good solid time with this one. And again, I wouldn't see this film being like the next sci-fi classic or anything like that. But if you're a fan of like these kind of like futuristic alien post-apocalyptic sci-fi films, or you're a fan of Chris Pratt or anything like that, this one may be a good one to watch with your friends. And if you do have Amazon Prime, it is available to stream on Amazon Prime for free. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this movie. I'm gonna give The Tomorrow War 3.5 out of 5. Now let's move on to Infinite. Now Infinite was directed by Antoine Fuqua and stars Mark Wahlberg as this man named Evan, where he's basically on the verge of having a mental breakdown because he's been haunted by memories of places he's never visited before. But later on in the film, he joins this group force of reborn warriors who are trying to stop this madman named Bathurst 2020, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who's trying to basically destroy the endless cycle of life and reincarnation. And also from there we see Evan discover more about his hallucinations and all that. So that's pretty much the story of Infinite. Now for this one, I knew nothing about this one going into it because this one kind of popped out of nowhere for me because I was looking on Amazon Prime to check out some other releases that was on that streaming service. But for this movie, it did look pretty interesting to me because you have some talented names who are in this movie, such as Mark Wahlberg, who I'm a huge fan of. He's one of my favorite actors. He's really fun to watch in any movie he's in. And you also have Chiwetel Ejiofor. I think he's a pretty good actor. And you also have Rupert, Toby Jones, and Dylan O'Brien, which those three actors I think they're pretty talented in some movies I've seen before in the past. And for the director who's behind the camera for this film is Antoine Fuqua. And I've enjoyed most of his films, namely Training Day, The Equalizer, as well as its sequel, and Shooter, which for that film it had Mark Wahlberg. So for both Mark Wahlberg and Antoine Fuqua making another movie together after all those years, it seemed like a pretty interesting reunion of sorts here. And I never saw much of its marketing here for this film. Like I never saw much for the posters, and I never saw the trailers when they first dropped by. Because again, this movie just kind of popped out of nowhere for me, and all that when I was looking on Amazon Prime and all that. So, and I didn't watch this movie last year on Amazon Prime because I never had the chance to watch it and all that. But I decided to watch it in this year and all that, basically so I can catch up on other movies I missed out last year and all that. So I did watch this on Amazon Prime this year, and after watching it. This one, unfortunately, I did not like this one because I really wasn't a fan of this movie here. Well, the only praise I could say out of this movie is its concept. I did like the concept for this film. I thought it was pretty creative here. But for its execution-wise for this film, it's one of the weakest aspects I do have with this film because the execution for its concept for this film, I found it very generic, messy, forgettable, predictable, and just... I could just pretty much can go on here because... I found the whole execution here for this film from its concept just not all that great here. And, and it is pretty similar to another sci-fi action film, which I can say it's a much better film than this one here. And that's obviously The Matrix, because this film is just trying to be like The Matrix here, but totally different here. And for what they did here for this film, just wasn't even all that good here, and just not even memorable in the slightest. And but the action scenes here in this movie, like you've got some car chases, some gunplays, and samurai play. They're pretty fine enough, but I didn't find any of them memorable whatsoever because it's mostly due to the characters. Because for these characters in this movie, I didn't find myself really interested with these characters because for the character development, it wasn't even all that good or interesting because it's mostly due to the script. Because the script in this film was just not great here. But I wouldn't say it's one of the worst scripts I've seen for a movie ever. It's just not one of the best here. And for the performances here in this film, well, Mark Wahlberg, I could see he was trying his best here, and he's just pretty much being himself here in this film. But I kind of felt he was a bit miscast in the film, but he wasn't bad in the film. It's just not one of his best performances here. And Chiwetel Ejiofor plays the villain. I could see he was trying his best, but he couldn't save anything. He just couldn't really save anything for this movie. And everyone else in the film, I thought their performances was just overall not all that great. And for some of the actors in the film, like you got Rupert, and Dylan O'Brien, they're barely in the movie, which that's kind of a big shame. They're only there for a few minutes, but they never come back for a single scene in the slightest, which that's a big shame for this movie. But in the end, guys, Infinite, yeah, this one unfortunately is not a good sci-fi film. This is definitely one of the worst sci-fi films I've seen, and I can also say this is definitely one of the worst films I've seen of 2021. But if you're a fan of like sci-fi action films like this since The Matrix, or you're a fan of Mark Wahlberg or Antoine Fuqua, I don't know a way to recommend this one because for me personally, I don't really recommend this film whatsoever because this movie, just like I said, it was just terrible. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Infinite. I'm gonna give Infinite 1 out of 5. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching for my double A for Soul review on both The Tomorrow War and Infinite. And let me know what you think of both of these films. You have seen these already if you just recently checked out these films for the very first time. For The Tomorrow War, did you have a blast with this, or is this not really a popcorn tree? Infinite, did you have a really good time with this, or did you just downright hated it? As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been Falcon's Media Corner signing off.